The C96 Trench Carbine, the first fully automatic fire capable weapon for the Scout class in Battlefield 5, released today via the Battlefest weekly challenge for week 3. For those who just want a quick rundown, the C96 is a close quarter and medium range capable scout option, offering the class the ability to get in closer than otherwise possible with the SLRs or bolt actions. It's easy to use and great for flanking maneuvers thanks to the large mag, but really lacks a competitive damage model or fire rate, and thus is only really a recommendation for players looking for a challenge or who make up for the lacking performance of the weapon through usage of the Scout's powerful gadgets. For those who want a little more detail, in today's weapon review, we'll be talking about the fastest way to unlock the C96 Trench Carbine, the stats the weapon has to offer, the specializations available, and that I would recommend, how it compares to the competition, and how to get the most out of it when using it on the battlefield. In terms of unlocking this weapon, this week's challenge side by side is mostly pretty straightforward. The first challenges focus on objective play and pretty much simply killing the enemy. The fastest way to complete those is likely by actually playing Squad Conquest, given that most of your time in that game mode is spent capturing objectives. For the revive, healing and damage tasks that follow after that, I would recommend a map with plenty for players A to shoot at and B to heal. Thus the temporarily returned Operation Underground playlist is actually likely your best bet. If that's not your cup of tea, any game of Breakthrough will likely get you done with the challenge close to just as fast. In terms of these stats, the C96 Trench Carbine is a Trench Carbine, and thus they aren't necessarily that impressive. Maximum damage sits at 36, minimum damage at 13.2, giving you between a 3 and an 8 shot kill, depending on the engagement distance. You've got a 3-shot kill all the way out to 10 meters, a 4-shot kill all the way out to 30 meters, a 5-shot kill to 50 meters, 6-shot kill to 75 meters, and 7-shot kill guaranteed to 92 meters, after which you're looking at an 8-shot kill. The fire rate is identical to that of the other weapons in the class at 359 rounds per minute, and its magazine size is generous at 41 bullets available. The reloads given that are pretty good as well, with a short reload of 2.53 seconds, but the long reload isn't exactly something to look forward to at 4 seconds. Vertical recoil at 0.72 isn't nothing, but definitely not something that should prevent you from using the weapon effectively, and much like the semi-autos, this weapon has no horizontal recoil. The spread value is at 0.15 for aiming down sight while not moving, 0.3 for doing the same while moving, and 1.2 for hip firing standing and moving simultaneously are what you would expect from a Trench Carbine if you're familiar, for example, with the P08 version. In terms of the specializations available, your first choice is between Quick Aim for a 33% reduction in ADS time or Lightened Stock for 60% faster movement while ADSing. Then if you go down the left hand side, you're looking at Enhanced Grips, giving you an improvement to the hip-fire accuracy of the weapon, followed by Polished Action, which improves your sustained accuracy while hip-firing the C96. If you go down the right hand side instead, you're looking at Slings and Swivels, which gives you 15% faster weapon switching, and the Selective Fire Trigger upgrade, which allows the weapon to be fired fully automatic. Following that, your last choice is between Quick Reload for 15% faster reloads or Custom Stock for an improvement to the accuracy while you aim down sight and move simultaneously. In terms of my personal choice, given that the P08 can very much be set up essentially identical to the C96 Trench Carbine with a focus on that left hand side hipfire improvement, I see no reason really to essentially create a clone of the P08. There are differences between the two weapons and we will cover them slightly later, but in order to really differentiate them properly and make them two separate entities, it really makes most sense to go for the right hand side here, going for Quick Aim, then Slings and Swivels, Selective Fire Trigger, and lastly either Quick Reload or the Custom Stock. The reason for this is very simply the Selective Fire Trigger, allowing fully automatic fire on this weapon, making it significantly easier to use in close and medium range engagements and allowing you much better, this is my personal experience, to control the vertical recoil on the weapon. Speaking of the P08 Carbine, how does the C96 Trench compare to it? Well, there is a couple of noticeable differences, but mostly the weapons are essentially identical, with the main difference being the damage model of the two, with the C96 Trench Carbine having a maximum bullet to kill as previously mentioned of 8 and the P08 actually only of 6, meaning that the weapons perform essentially the same all the way out to 75 meters, But from that point onwards, the PO8 has a significant damage advantage over the Trench Carbine. But really, you shouldn't be using either of these weapons at those engagement distances because they are simply not effective at those ranges. So while the PO8 beats out the C96 in long range damage, they are of course the same in close and medium ranges, the C96 has an advantage in the mag capacity size with 41 bullets available versus the 33 on the PO8. It also has a small advantage in the vertical recoil department with only 0.72 vertical versus the 0.85 of the PO8, making it slightly easier to control, and that's without taking into account the fully automatic fire mode available on this weapon. The really bigger picture here in terms of comparative performance though is the semi-autos and the SMGs, because versus the semi-autos, be it the PO8 or be it the C96 Trench Carbine, really none of these weapons are in any way competitive, unless of course you're within hipfire ranges, because outside of 10 meters you have a bullet to kill disadvantage with weapons that have a matched fire rate, and the only accuracy advantage you have over them is of course that better hipfire. And versus SMGs, even that disappears with a damage advantage, usually even sub 10 meters, being available to the better close quarter SMGs, which means you really have a weapon that is, for the situations you're going to be using it at, slightly underpowered. Which brings us nicely onto the playstyle and how you have to use these weapons to make them effective. Because if you truly want to use a Trench Carbine, really you have to justify it by using the gadgets available to the Scout class. Namely, most importantly of course, the flares. Because while it does allow you to be more aggressive as Scout, you still are at a disadvantage versus a medic, an assault, or a support player. Thus, with the help of your spotting flare or other available gadgetry, you can make up for that, put yourself in a better position, and especially in combination with very close squad play, this can be very effective. Because if you're on comms with other players and can provide them with active intel on all of the enemies around you, it really doesn't matter that you don't have the most powerful weapon, they're going to make sure you don't get jumped, and together you can take on the enemy. This weapon is of course also very effective when it comes to solo flanks, assuming the enemy doesn't turn around and you have to deal with them on a one-on-one situation, because then your DPS disadvantage is going to become a little bit of a problem. There, of course, the 40 round magazine means you can take on really as many players as you want as long as you're accurate, especially in a close quarter flanking scenario where the hipfire is still very effective. I should also note that, of course, headshots on this weapon are extraordinarily effective, and if you have better accuracy than your enemy and are able to land a couple of headshots, you will of course suddenly be very competitive in your damage output versus your assault rifle or SMG using enemy who maybe isn't going for those headshots. So very much while this weapon puts you at somewhat of a disadvantage, if you use it correctly, take advantage of the gadgetry available to you, flank a lot, make sure you make use of that hipfire, make sure you stick to effective engagement distances. I recommend quite a bit of use of active cover as well. You can absolutely make the weapons work, and they can be very powerful in the right hands. But that pretty much wraps up for the C96 Trench Carbine. Feel free to share your own experiences with the weapon down below. If you enjoyed the video, rating would be much appreciated. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 5 video.